Have you ever looked in the mirror and wondered where the time went? Your face may have a few more wrinkles, your body may move a little slower, but the wisdom in your eyes, that doesn't come easily. Somewhere along the way, many of us start to believe that aging means fading, slowing down, becoming less. But what if that belief is actually a lie? Here's something to think about. Getting older isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a deeper chapter. In Buddhist philosophy, aging isn't something to be feared. It's a sacred invitation to live more mindfully, more meaningfully. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how. You're about to discover 8 helpful tips drawn from timeless Buddhist wisdom that will help you live with more energy, clarity, and fulfillment, no matter how old you are. These aren't just ideas, they are life practices. And if you follow me, they can change the way you walk in this world. So let me ask you, are you ready to stop counting the years and start making them count? Let's get started. There's something deeply healing about just walking. Not to race, not to impress, not to arrive anywhere in particular, but just to walk. To move your body with intention and feel the world around you again. I remember the first time I went for a walk, not to reach a destination, but just to be. My legs were heavy. My breath felt uneven. I wasn't sure if I was doing it right, but I kept going, slowly, gently. And then something shifted. My thoughts began to soften. The noise in my mind grew quiet. The crunch of gravel underfoot, the whisper of wind through the trees, the distant song of a bird I'd never noticed before, it all came alive. That's when I understood. This wasn't just a walk. It was meditation in motion. In Buddhism, walking meditation is a sacred practice. The Buddha himself walked countless miles, not just to reach new places, but to remain rooted in the present moment. Each step he took was deliberate, each breath mindful, each movement an offering of awareness. And this practice is available to you right now. You don't need to walk for miles. Just 10 minutes a day, around your block, through your garden, even inside your home, can be enough to shift your energy, clear your mind, and bring you back to yourself. You see, the body and mind are deeply connected. And when your body moves with mindfulness, your thoughts begin to follow. You step away from anxiety. You step out of regret, and you step into presence. I once met an elderly woman at a temple retreat. Her knees were weak, her back was hunched, but every morning, rain or shine, she walked. Not quickly, not far, but with grace. When I asked her why she kept this practice, she smiled and said, "When I walk, my spirit follows. That's how I keep moving forward." Her words stayed with me, because aging doesn't mean standing still. It means learning to move differently, with more awareness, more compassion, more care for the body that has carried you through a lifetime of moments. When you walk with mindfulness, you give yourself space to breathe, to process, to heal. It becomes a sacred pause from the distractions of modern life, a time when your phone is in your pocket, your worries are in the background, and your senses are alive. You begin to notice the small blessings that were always there: sunlight on your skin, the scent of the earth, the rhythm of your breath. Each step becomes a reminder that you're still here, still moving, still growing. So if you've been feeling stuck, low on energy, or disconnected from your body, start with a walk. Not to exercise, but to reconnect, to move forward even if just a few steps at a time. And as you walk, ask yourself, what am I walking toward today? Peace, gratitude, clarity? Whatever it is, let that intention guide your steps. Because in those quiet, unhurried moments, you're doing more than walking. You're creating space for transformation. You're building strength, not just in your legs, but in your heart. So lace up your shoes, open your door, step outside, or simply into a space that feels safe and still, and walk your way home, to yourself. Have you ever asked yourself not just what you're eating, but why? So often we eat out of habit, boredom, even loneliness. A quick snack, a late-night treat, a fast meal grabbed between tasks. But behind every bite is a message about how we feel toward ourselves. And the question is, Are we eating like we truly care for this body we've lived in for decades? I'll never forget the moment this truth hit me. One evening, tired and restless, I opened a bag of chips and started eating without thinking. I wasn't even hungry, just disconnected. That's when I paused, looked down at the crumbs in my lap, and realized I deserved more than this. My body, my mind, my spirit, they deserved care. They deserved nourishment, not punishment, not neglect. So I went to the kitchen, chopped fresh vegetables, and made a simple pot of soup. As it simmered, I breathed in the scent. As I stirred, I felt present. And as I ate, something inside me softened. It wasn't just food. It was love in a bowl. In Buddhism, food is more than sustenance. It is an offering, a sacred exchange between the earth, the body, and the soul. The Buddha taught us the middle way, not indulgence, not deprivation, but mindful balance. To eat not with guilt or mindlessness, but with gratitude. That's the difference between feeding and nourishing. When you eat, slow down. Notice the colors on your plate. Feel the textures, the warmth, the life within your meal. Ask yourself, does this food honor the body I live in? Am I eating to fill a void or to support my well-being? I once met an elderly monk who said, "I eat as though every meal is a prayer." That wisdom stayed with me, because mindful eating is not about a strict diet. It's about returning to reverence. A quiet thank you to the body that still wakes up, still breathes, still walks through this world. So the next time you prepare a meal, treat it as a ritual. Cook slowly. Eat gratefully. Even if it's just a piece of fruit or a warm cup of tea, let it be a moment of connection between you and your health. Because when you eat like you love yourself, you begin to heal. Not just your body, but your heart. When was the last time you laughed, truly laughed, so hard that your eyes watered and your stomach ached? Not a polite smile or a forced chuckle, but the kind of laughter that bubbles up from your chest and reminds you that life still holds magic. Too often, as we grow older, laughter fades into the background. We become focused on our health, our responsibilities, our memories of how things used to be. The lightness we once carried starts to feel like a distant echo. But here's something beautiful. Laughter is still within reach. It never leaves us. Sometimes, we just forget how to invite it back. I remember a night with my dear friend Betty, someone who had seen me through decades of life's highs and lows. We were watching an old slapstick comedy, one of those goofy black and white films. There was a moment so silly, so over the top, that we both burst into uncontrollable laughter. We laughed until we cried, until we could barely breathe. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the aches in our joints, not the burdens on our hearts, just laughter. Pure, healing joy. Buddhism teaches us that laughter is a sign of freedom, a release from the tight grip of attachment and fear. The Buddha himself often smiled and encouraged his followers to take life less seriously, to embrace its absurdities with compassion and humor. Because laughter isn't a distraction, it's a medicine. It softens the hardened heart. It quiets the overthinking mind. It brings us back to the now. You don't need a comedy show to laugh. Sometimes it's in the little things. A silly memory, a story shared with an old friend, even learning to laugh at ourselves with kindness. I once met an elderly woman at a meditation retreat who told me, "I spent too much of my youth worrying. Now, I laugh every day, even if it's just at myself." That was her secret to aging joyfully. And it's a lesson that stayed with me. You see, when we laugh, we remember that life isn't meant to be endured. It's meant to be lived, fully, lightly, with an open heart. So give yourself permission to laugh again. Not just when things are going well, but especially when they're not. Laughter reminds us that even in sorrow, joy still exists. It doesn't erase the pain, but it helps us carry it more gently. Watch something funny. Call someone who makes you smile. Spend time with people who bring out your lightness. Or simply sit with yourself and find humor in the beautiful imperfections of being human. Laughter is not about ignoring life's challenges. It's about embracing them with grace. And when you laugh, you don't just heal yourself. You share that healing with the world. So today, choose joy. Choose laughter. Let it echo through your spirit like a bell of awakening. Because every laugh is a reminder. You are alive. You are still growing, and joy is always within reach. There comes a time in life when the days begin to blur together. The roles we once played, worker, parent, caregiver, shift or fall away. And without that structure, many of us find ourselves asking, what now? I remember the first few months after retirement. At first, it felt like freedom. No alarm clocks, no deadlines, just time. But slowly, the excitement wore off, and I found myself drifting. Mornings became late afternoons, meals lost their rhythm, and I often reached the end of the day wondering what I had really done. That's when I learned something valuable. Freedom without rhythm becomes chaos. But routine can be a gentle anchor. In Buddhist philosophy, daily discipline is not about restriction, it's about balance. The Buddha taught that how we spend our days is how we shape our minds. A routine isn't about being busy, it's about being intentional. I started with small acts, a cup of warm tea each morning at the same time, a short walk after breakfast, a few pages from a book before bed. At first it felt strange, almost forced, but over time these simple rhythms became sacred. They gave my day shape. My mind felt calmer, my body felt more grounded, and my heart felt like it had come home. I once spoke with an elderly monk at a retreat. He was serene, joyful, and present. When I asked him the secret, he said, "Every day I follow the same path: meditation, meals, study, rest. And in that rhythm, I find peace." His life wasn't filled with excitement or novelty, but with presence. And that, he explained, was the deepest form of happiness. A routine doesn't need to be rigid or complicated. It just needs to be yours. Think of it as a gentle framework that holds your day, giving your mind a place to rest and your heart something to look forward to. Maybe it's lighting a candle in the morning and saying a quiet prayer. Maybe it's taking a walk after dinner, or journaling before bed. These are more than habits. They are anchors. They remind us that even as life changes, we can create steadiness within. If you're feeling lost, anxious, or unsure of what your days should look like now, start simple. Choose one moment and make it sacred. Repeat it tomorrow, and the day after that. Before long, it becomes a rhythm that steadies your soul, because aging isn't about doing less. It's about doing what matters with intention. So ask yourself, what simple rhythm can I bring into my day? What practice, however small, can guide me toward more peace and clarity? Remember, structure is not confinement. It's wisdom. And in that wisdom, we rediscover purpose. Let your routine become your quiet compass, pointing you gently every day toward stillness, presence, and peace. There's a quiet kind of loneliness that creeps in as we grow older. Not always loud or visible, but gently persistent. It can settle in the spaces between conversations, in the silence of an empty room, in the feeling that no one really sees what we're carrying. For years, I believed I had to handle everything on my own. I thought strength meant self-reliance, so I stayed quiet, smiled through the pain, and kept my struggles tucked away. But inside I felt isolated, like a small boat drifting without a lighthouse. And then one day my daughter called. We didn't talk about anything big, just groceries, her kids, the weather. But something shifted. Her voice, her laughter, her presence through the phone. It softened something in me. I felt lighter, seen, connected, and I realized healing doesn't always come from grand solutions. Sometimes it begins with a simple conversation. In Buddhism, community, sangha, is one of the three jewels. The Buddha knew that our journey is not meant to be walked alone. We thrive in connection. We grow in compassion, not just for ourselves, but for each other. Talking to someone isn't a weakness. It's a sacred act of vulnerability and trust. It's saying, I don't have to carry this by myself. And more often than not, you'll find that others are relieved to hear that because they've been feeling the same way. I remember a woman I met at a meditation retreat. She was in her 70s, a caregiver her entire life, first to her parents, then her children, and finally her husband. She told me she had forgotten how to share her own story, always putting others first. But when she finally opened up to a small circle of women, something inside her awakened. She found her voice again, and with it, a sense of strength she hadn't felt in years. When we talk to someone, we're not just sharing words. We're creating a bridge, a space where we are heard, understood, and reminded that we are not alone in this world. So if you're holding something in, I encourage you to reach out. It doesn't have to be deep or heavy. A simple hello, a short phone call, a walk with a neighbor. These moments can carry more healing than we imagine. And if you feel there's no one to talk to, consider joining a group, a meditation circle, a book club, a senior class, places where hearts gather, where listening is just as powerful as speaking. The Buddha taught that all beings are interconnected. When we open our hearts to each other, we begin to remember that truth. We see ourselves reflected in others, and them in us. So today ask yourself, who can I talk to? Who might need to hear my voice, my story, my presence? Because connection is not just a comfort, it's a practice, and every conversation is a step toward healing. You are not alone, and you never have to be. When was the last time you did something for the first time? As we grow older, it's easy to fall into patterns, familiar routines, predictable days, and the quiet comfort of what we already know. There's nothing wrong with that. Routine brings peace. But over time, something begins to fade. The spark of discovery, that gentle excitement of learning, the courage of trying, the joy of not knowing exactly how things will turn out. But here's the beautiful truth. It's never too late to begin again. I remember the day I signed up for a pottery class at the local community center. I'd never worked with clay before. My hands were stiff. My confidence was low. I almost walked away before it started. But something inside me whispered, "Stay." And I did. What followed wasn't perfection. It was mess, a lopsided bowl, clay on my shirt, laughing at myself more than once. But that class became one of the most nourishing experiences of my life, not because I created a masterpiece, but because I dared to try. In Buddhist practice, we call this the beginner's mind, the ability to approach life with openness, curiosity, and a willingness to be present, without expectation. The Buddha taught that this mindset is essential for growth, because wisdom isn't just about what we know, it's about how open we are to what we don't know. Trying something new reminds us that we're still evolving, still learning, still alive in the fullest sense. I think of a friend named Carol, who picked up watercolor painting at age 72. "I never knew I had a creative bone in my body," she told me. But she painted every afternoon, slowly, with joy. Not for praise, not for anyone else, but for herself. "It keeps me young," she said. And you could see it in her eyes, bright, alive, full of wonder. This is the spirit of adventure. It doesn't require travel or big leaps. Sometimes, it's as simple as cooking a new recipe, planting a flower you've never grown, or taking a new path on your morning walk. The point isn't mastery, it's presence. And when you try something new, you invite freshness into your soul. You remind yourself that the story isn't over, that the next page hasn't been written, that life still holds surprises, even in its quietest seasons. So what have you always wanted to explore, but never gave yourself permission to? Maybe now is the time to play, to learn, to laugh through the awkward beginnings and enjoy the magic of doing something just because it brings you joy. As the Buddha taught, the present moment is always new, always alive. Let yourself meet it with curiosity, because you're not done yet. And every time you try something new, you affirm that truth. There's still adventure left in you. There was a time when sleep came easily, a warm bed, a quiet night, and the body would surrender. But as we grow older, sleep becomes more elusive. Our thoughts race, our bodies ache, and the night, once a place of peace, becomes another challenge to manage. But here's what many of us forget. Sleep is not a luxury. It's a sacred practice, a form of healing that the body and mind both desperately need. I remember lying awake night after night, staring at the ceiling, thoughts swirling like a storm. I'd check the clock, roll over, sigh, waiting for rest to come. But it never did, not until I changed the way I approached it. One night, I did something different. I turned off the screens, lit a candle, and brewed a cup of warm chamomile tea. I sat quietly, breathing deeply, allowing my body to slow down. No noise, no distractions, just stillness. And something shifted. That night, I slept. Not just physically, but spiritually. I woke up feeling whole again. In Buddhism, rest is part of the middle way. Not too much, not too little, but balanced. The Buddha taught that even in sleep, we should carry awareness and reverence. The moments before we close our eyes are powerful, an opportunity to let go of the day, to offer gratitude and to return to stillness. I once met a monk in Thailand who said, "Sleep is like meditation. If you enter it with peace, you awaken with clarity." That wisdom changed the way I view rest. It's not something to chase, it's something to prepare for with care. So if you struggle with sleep, begin with ritual. Create a gentle rhythm at the end of your day. Dim the lights. Read something soothing. Journal your thoughts. Pray, or sit in silent reflection. Let this time become a signal to your body and spirit. It is safe to rest. Because sleep is not about escape. It's about returning to balance, to breath, to calm. When we sleep well, our bodies repair. Our minds process, our hearts soften, we become more patient, more energized, more grounded in ourselves. And if you're lying awake, burdened by thoughts, try this. Breathe slowly and whisper a silent thank you. Thank your body for carrying you through the day. Thank your breath for staying with you. Thank life for the small moments you made it through. Gratitude is the bridge to rest. So tonight, let sleep be more than rest. Let it be renewal. You've earned it. Not because you were productive, but because you are human. Because you've lived another day. Because rest is a form of love. Treat sleep not as an afterthought, but as a sacred closing ceremony to your day. And when you wake, may you feel a little lighter, a little clearer, a little more like yourself. When was the last time you truly celebrated yourself? Not for a birthday, not for a milestone, but simply because you've made it through another day, another challenge, another chapter. In a world that constantly asks us to do more, give more, and be more, we often forget the quiet strength it takes just to keep going. We forget to pause, to look back, and to honor how far we've come. But here's the truth. You are worthy of celebration, not someday, but today. I remember a week when everything felt heavy. Nothing went according to plan. My body felt tired, my spirit dimmed. But one evening, instead of pushing through, I did something small. I treated myself to a slice of pie. Not for any special reason except to say, "You made it." I lit a candle, sat down, and just appreciated myself. And in that small act, something shifted. It wasn't about the pie. It was about acknowledging my effort, my resilience, my presence. Buddhism teaches us the practice of mudita, sympathetic joy, not only celebrating the happiness of others, but also learning to feel joy for ourselves. The Buddha encouraged us to recognize even the smallest victories, moments of courage, clarity, or simply kindness. Because these moments matter, they build our story, they reveal our spirit. At a retreat, I once met a woman who had spent most of her life caring for others, her children, her husband, her aging parents. She was generous, selfless, always giving. But when asked what she had done for herself, she paused. Then she smiled and said, "I raised good people, I showed up, I kept going." That day she gave herself a gift she had long withheld, recognition. She didn't need applause, she just needed to say, "I matter too, and so do you." Your journey is not defined by perfection, it's defined by persistence, by showing up again and again with love in your heart, even when no one's watching. So celebrate you, not with grandeur, but with gratitude. Light a candle for the strength you've built. Take a walk and reflect on your growth. Write down a few words that remind you of how far you've come. This is not pride. This is honoring the wisdom you've gained, the challenges you've overcome, the person you've become. The Buddha reminded us that self-compassion is a path to awakening. When we honor ourselves with kindness, we create the space for deeper peace and lasting joy. So I ask you now, what can you celebrate today? Maybe it's something big. Maybe it's something only you will ever know about. That's okay. The size doesn't matter. The awareness does. Let today be the day you look at yourself, not with criticism, but with appreciation. You are still here, still growing, still capable of joy. And that alone is worth celebrating. I'm reminded of a story I read about Ernestine Shepherd, a woman who didn't begin her fitness journey until she was in her 50s. By her 80s, she had become a Guinness World Record-holding bodybuilder. But her story wasn't about trophies or headlines. It was about honoring herself, one day, one choice at a time. After losing her sister to illness, she made a promise to take better care of her health and her spirit. Each morning, she would rise early, recite affirmations, and go for a walk, not just to stay fit, but to stay centered. Over time, her commitment became a celebration of life itself. She often said, "Age is nothing but a number," and you could see that truth in her eyes, not just strength, but joy. A joy that came from showing up for herself with love. Her journey reminds us that it's never too late to begin honoring our lives, not through grand gestures, but through small, intentional acts of self-respect. Like Ernestine, we can all choose to celebrate who we are today, not for who we once were or who we hope to be, but for the quiet strength that still lives within us now. The deeper message here is simple, yet profound. Your life is already enough to be honored. In a modern world that measures worth by youth, speed, and achievement, it's easy to overlook the quiet victories of endurance, compassion, and staying true to yourself. But Buddhist wisdom reminds us, real strength is not loud. It lives in the daily effort to rise, to care, to love, even when no one is watching. And for those in the second half of life, this message becomes even more important. Now is not the time to fade into the background or compare yourself to younger versions of who you once were. Now is the time to see your journey as sacred, to reflect not on what's missing, but on the richness of what you've lived through. Whether you've raised a family, built a business, survived loss, or simply kept going when it was hard, that deserves reverence. It deserves celebration. The modern world may rush forward, but you can choose to pause, to breathe, to say, "I'm proud of the life I've lived." And in that moment of mindful recognition, you reclaim your joy, not from the world outside, but from the strength that's always lived within. So here we are, at the close of this reflection, and yet, perhaps at the beginning of something new. You've walked with me through 8 simple but powerful truths, each one a doorway into deeper peace, strength, and meaning. But what truly matters now is not the words we've shared, but how you carry them into your life. Buddhism teaches us that every moment is an opportunity to begin again. No matter your age, no matter your past, the present is always open, always waiting for your attention, your care, your presence. Aging is not a signal to retreat from life. It's a gentle nudge to live more consciously, more kindly, more aligned with what truly matters. You don't need to master everything today. Just choose one small step. Maybe you begin with a morning walk, or sit down for a mindful meal. Maybe tonight you let yourself rest, truly rest, for the first time in a long while. Let this chapter of your life be filled not with regret, but with reverence. You are still on the journey, and the path ahead, though quieter, may be the most meaningful yet. So take a breath, come back to yourself, and walk forward with awareness, with courage, and with love. This is your time. If this message touched your heart, I invite you to stay on this journey with us. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone you care about. Your presence here matters. And by joining this community, you help keep these quiet, healing teachings alive. Let's walk this path of mindful living together, one gentle step at a time. Thank you for being here.